Welcome to the Mind Solution podcast with Sarah Maud. The Mind Solution podcast is for leaders like you who are passionate about well-being in the workplace because you understand that a strong, resilient and happy workforce is the key to your organisation's success. The Mind Solution podcast is here to help you. So join us every week where we'll share with you powerful insights, strategies and know-how to ensure that your people and your organisation are truly thriving from the inside out. Hello and welcome to another episode from the Mind Solution podcast. And today, as part of Mental Health Awareness Week, I'm going to be exploring the question, when it comes to mental health, where does the buck stop? However, first I'd like to share with you a very powerful quote from the wonderful Brene Brown, who said that we are the most in debt, obese, addicted and medicated adult cohort in US history. And even though today's podcast is very much focused on the UK, I'd suggest, Brene, if we were to apply that quote to the UK, we wouldn't be far off the mark. So where does the buck stop when it comes to mental health? Does it stop with the government? Does it stop with us as individuals? Is it the NHS? Is it the workplace? Or in fact, is it with schools and the lack of education with our young people about mental health and well-being? So I'm going to share with you a personal story as I begin to look at the government first. Now, for those of you that are listening that don't know me or my background, I've worked as a therapist for nearly 10 years. And in that time, I've held close to about 10,000 one-to-one sessions with people. So having had first-hand experience of the power that modalities such as EFT or tapping, as it's also referred to as, solution-focused psychotherapy, hypnotherapy, matrix re-imprinting, MAP, NLP, all have in transforming people's state of mind, often in a handful of sessions. I mean, I've seen people experience the most amazing breakthroughs in literally a couple of sessions using a culmination of these modalities. I know what an amazing difference it would have if people had access to these on the NHS. Because we don't have an effective 21st century patient pathway in the UK. What we have are long, unacceptable waiting lists and very old traditional talking therapies like counselling and CBT, which don't have the same impact that these leading edge modalities do. Now, if I take EFT as an example, EFT, or emotional freedom technique to give it its proper name, can literally change the way that you feel and create a neurological and a physiological shift in under 10 minutes. So just imagine or picture or get a sense of what difference that would make if we had access to those kinds of modalities, those kinds of therapies on the NHS, and just how much money it would save the NHS. So having experienced 10 years of working with clients, just being witness to these amazing breakthroughs, I decided to set it upon myself to try and create this 21st century patient pathway. So I set up a meeting with Miles Briggs, who at the time of meeting him was the Deputy Minister for Mental Health in Scotland. And my main reason for meeting with him was to get his help to open up some doors. Because what I wanted to do is I wanted to conduct a study in conjunction with a GP surgery where we could take a group of patients over a period of time and we could apply these modalities like EFT and hypnotherapy to treat cases of anxiety and stress and depression, and we could measure the results. And I knew we'd need a leading edge university to help us conduct the study and to really evaluate the results. And that's what I needed Miles Briggs to help me do, to just help me open a few doors, pull a few strings and get a university on board, because I knew that the results would be incredible. I had 10 years worth of data of incredible results. And in that time, I knew that getting these modalities recognised on the NHS would save millions. And it might interest you to know that antidepressant prescriptions were dispensed over 70 million times in England alone in 2018. And that's just England. That's double what it was in 2008. And it's not just about the cost of antidepressant prescriptions, it's all of the other indirect costs, like the cost of GP visits, visits to psychiatrists, community health service teams, hospitalisation in some cases. So I knew that it would be a win-win situation to get these modalities recognised by the NHS. So I met with him, I put forward the case. He was incredibly impressed, but as far as his ability to support and open some doors, well, he was about as useful as a chocolate teapot. Because the government also believe it's acceptable to have an 18-week wait from referral to treatment. And I'm referring to the Scottish Government here, who set a target for the NHS in Scotland to deliver an 18-week wait from referral. So referral from your GP to treatment for psychological therapies. So if you've got acute anxiety, if you're struggling to get out of bed, if you're at the point where you can't see a point in carrying on, then don't worry. You've only got 4.5 months to wait to be seen by somebody on the NHS. So if the buck does stop with the government, then quite frankly, I think we're all screwed. And that leads to the NHS. Now, it might interest you to know that the National Institute of Clinical Excellence specify that you should not use antidepressants routinely to treat persistent sub-threshold depressive symptoms or mild depression because the risk-benefit ratio is poor. And what that means in simple terms is that if you're experiencing low mood, if you're feeling quite disengaged, if you're feeling isolated and lonely, which quite frankly is understandable given what we've gone through in the last year, maybe you're struggling to sleep, you're feeling just disconnected, then antidepressants should not be an option. So why is it that antidepressants are being handed out like Smarties without any formal consultation and assessment? You know, you can be in and out of a GP's office with a prescription for antidepressants in under 10 minutes. And how do I know this? I've known it because of the thousands of clients that I've worked with who've gone to the GP as a first option and they've just literally been handed a prescription. And of those clients, I've lost count of the amount who have also had psychotic episodes and suicidal thoughts as a direct result of the antidepressants. These are not side effects, they're direct effects. Now, I don't wish to tar every GP with the same brush, but what we need to see happening are conversations about lifestyle factors. We need our GPs to be given more time with people so that they can understand what's happening with that person. When did they start feeling like this? How are they supporting themselves? What's their diet like? Whether they're taking supplements, whether they're moving their body, whether they're getting outside, whether they've got the right support network. None of these questions are being routinely asked. Instead, prescriptions are being written with no additional support or referrals to therapy, which goes against the NICE guidelines. And even when people are being referred to therapy, they're having to wait. And we've got 1 in 6 of the population on antidepressants, and those numbers are rising. As I read in one article, are GPs being too trigger happy with prescriptions? Well, yeah, I fully believe they are. And you may wonder what else they can do, because they can only do what they can do within the confines of where they can refer people. But we can still have our GPs having conversations along the lines of, I'd like you to look at your diet, to reduce the amount of sugar that you eat, to take the right supplements, to move your body, to get outside every day, to take a brisk walk, to look at your sleep routine, to start a medication class, to reduce your screen time and start drinking more water, and come back to me in a month when you've done that, and then let's have a conversation. You know, David Taylor, a director of pharmacy and pathology at Maudsley Hospital in South London, said that social isolation and fear of contracting coronavirus were both likely to increase rates of depression and anxiety, and subsequently the number of antidepressants prescribed. But no pill's going to stop you feeling lonely. But those conversations with people about lifestyle factors would take longer. And the government have also set targets about the amount of people that GPs have to see again. So who does the book stop with? Is it the NHS or is it the government? And a lot of people going to see their GP, and people like myself, is because they're exhausted. They're stressed, they're not sleeping, and they feel under constant pressure from their employers. So let's have a look at the workplace. Now, at the Mind Solution, we work with organisations to support wellbeing in the workplace. And in the last 12 months, I'm delighted to say that there's been a huge focus on mental health in the workplace. And more than ever, we're seeing organisations investing in the mental health and wellbeing of their people. Now, some of that's been in the form of employee webinars, some of it's with management mental health training, and we've also got organisations that are investing in digital employee wellbeing portals. And some of the organisations are providing contributions to apps, and they're reviewing their employee benefits package for one-to-one help and support. And all of that is truly wonderful. You know, many organisations are recognising that actually if we want our people to truly thrive and our organisation to thrive, our business to thrive, then support is needed. You know, we can't expect people to experience what they've gone through this year and just simply move forward. And the good news is that there's always going to be a return on investment for organisations who invest in wellbeing in the workplace initiatives. Studies have shown that for every dollar that's invested in wellbeing and mental health initiatives, there's a $4 return on investment. So it's a no-brainer. And while organisations and their leaders aren't perfect, and yes, there is still a lot of work to do to transform organisational culture and achieve better working practices, does the buck stop with organisations? Can we blame organisations in the workplace for stressing people out? Well, personally, I think that this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is just the beginning when it comes to wellbeing in the workplace. We could argue that employers are doing far more to support our people than the government and the NHS. So perhaps the buck doesn't stop with our employers. So what about schools? Now, you might be wondering what schools have got to do with anything, but it could surprise you to know that the vast majority of our programming actually takes place at a very young age. And we know that cases of mental health problems with young people are soaring at an unprecedented rate. So therefore, we could ask the question, what are schools doing as part of the curriculum to teach young people about the mind, about the body, about how to take care of themselves mentally, physically, and emotionally? What are schools doing that teach mindfulness, that teach meditation? What are schools doing that teach people about the way that they think, how to form a positive identity with themselves, instead of it being about what society thinks that people should live up to? And as the saying goes, knowledge is power. So what are schools doing to equip young people with the knowledge and coping skills that will go on to support them for life? Now, the good news is that in some schools, in some parts of the world, they are starting to address this. In Australia, for example, they're starting to teach EFT, emotional freedom technique, in schools, which is absolutely incredible to see. Because EFT and its ability to regulate emotions, often in under 15 minutes, is phenomenal. And so to provide that training to young people at a very young age could make differences in ways that I couldn't even begin to describe. So coming back to the question again, does the book stop with schools? Maybe not. Because schools are also influenced by the government. I keep coming back to the government here. So let's explore us. Does the book stop with us as individuals? Well, if we were to take a step back and ask, who are the ones that put food into our body? Who are the ones that decide how much we're going to move our body, how much we exercise? Who are the ones that decide how much water we take in to our body every single day? Who are the ones that are responsible for putting boundaries in place, managing our time, taking breaks from our computers, stretching our body, spending time in nature? Who are the ones that decide what time we go to sleep, what time we get up, how much time we spend on social media, what we fill our minds with as far as TV, the books that we read, the films that we watch? Who are the ones that decide how to evolve our mindset, how to grow, how to develop? You know, we do have a lot of failing institutions that aren't supporting people in the way that they could and should be when it comes mental health. But we are the ones that decide how to take care of ourselves. And even though we have got failing institutions, we can still go out and we can read books and articles that plug our knowledge gap. We can still learn so much about wonderful techniques. You know, we've got the internet. We've got this massive information, a lot of it of which we can access for free. We can learn so much without having to spend huge amounts of money. We can practice breathing techniques. We can jump onto YouTube and find a yoga class. There's so much more that we can do that we couldn't do hundreds of years ago, because now we have access to this knowledge. And even if we don't have the means and funds to always access private complementary therapy like hypnotherapy or MAP or EFT or NLP, which are truly amazing, there is so much that we can do to support ourselves. But we are the ones that have to own that. We have to take accountability for ourselves, because whatever it is that we are thinking and whatever it is that we are feeling, a pill of any kind is never going to achieve what we want it to achieve. No antidepressant or beta blocker is going to rewire the way that you think if you experience anxiety. If you've got a brain that is structured to think worst case scenario, to think in survival mode, to think from a place of fear, no pill is going to rewire your brain. No pill is going to change the emotional blueprint from which you live your life. The only person that can do that and decide to get help to do that is us. So when it comes to the question of where does the book ultimately stop? Well, yes, I do believe that it is with us. Now, thank you for listening. If at The Mind Solution we can be any service to you in the form of training, or if you are an individual who's looking for some help, for some advice, then please get in touch with us. info@themindsolution.com.